Welcome to the next show of today. Today we want to talk about brands, and I'm happy to have you, Monique, here with us today. Welcome to our little Hamburg studio. Our guest of today is John Schoolcraft. What does he do at Oatly?
Well, you can't call him a CMO because they don't have marketing department in Oatly. He's the chief creative officer, and he's a bit of a rebel, but in the last 10 years, they've grown Oatly to a 10 billion euro company. So
it's amazing what they achieved in the past years.
Yeah.
I remember I watched a little talk of his when I was in Malmö in 2017 with a creative exchange program with creatives from Hamburg visiting Malmö and Malmö people visiting Hamburg, which I really loved. And John was there presenting Oatly, which wasn't in the market in Germany or just about to launch. And he presented this whole thing and his little Oatly universe, and I was really impressed by the style that he had.
Yeah, and also the way they've handled, especially the American market entry with a Super Bowl ad with the CEO singing a song, and he hadn't been told before that. Well, just stay around and listen.
Yeah, you made it when you're at the Super Bowl and when the Deutsche Bahn serves Oatly milk. That was like a big thing a few weeks back.
Yeah, but it's from a rebel brand to a, taking on the whole world brand. So
yeah, and it's not it's sometimes a difficult ride, I reckon. And I'm super excited to hear what he had to say in the conversation. But before we dive into that, we want to listen to our keynote in residency, David Metten, who can't be here in person with us today, but we're super happy to have him live now, sharing his thought. David, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Ina. What's on my mind right now is actually a story that's been on my mind for a long time, and many people's minds. It's the ongoing Great Resignation. We're seeing record numbers of people leaving their jobs. If you look actually back to November of last year, 4.53 million people in the US alone left their job in that month. That's the highest rate of job leaving ever on record measured in the United States. And that's why we have everyone talking about this Great Resignation. And there are some clear and simple reasons for it. First is there are lots of job vacancies in many Western economies right now. So that means people leaving jobs have jobs to go to, and that makes sense. But I think there's something deeper underlying it too. And I think we can all feel that people are not just leaving these jobs in order to go to other jobs. People are leaving jobs in order to not get another job at all. And actually the data bears that out too. People are reassessing their relationship with having a job, and they're reassessing their relationship with work, and they're starting to ask if work in the conventional sense is the most meaningful way they can spend their life, and if they can revise their relationship with having a job and dedicate more of their energies to other things, to having a life in other ways. And I think that's a trend we're going to see play out really powerfully across the 2020s. It reminds me a lot of a previous guest, a brilliant guest we had on the next show, Albert Wenger, the VC, the venture capitalist, who wrote an amazing book called The World After Capital, because in the end, this is about people revising their relationship with capitalism and asking if what we used to call the rat race and having a career and accumulating money and prestige in that way is the right thing to do. And Albert Wenger says on a systematic level, capitalism is no longer working the way it should in terms of directing people's attention towards the problems that we as a society need to solve. Some of those problems are around climate change. Some of those problems are around care for other human beings, care for our children, care for elderly parents. And we need to free up many more people to dedicate their lives to those kinds of problems. And that means we need to build new systems that reach, in the end, he says, beyond capitalism. And he believes part of the answer to that is a universal basic income. Because, of course, if people are going to be leaving their jobs in record numbers, if they want to revise their relationship with work and with capitalism, well, they still need money. They still need a way to sustain themselves. And we probably as a society need to start thinking about how we support that. So I just think the changing relationship between millions of people and work in the traditional sense is a really powerful story that we're going to see evolve all through this decade, definitely one to keep your eye on. I will be keeping my eye on it. But back to you all in Hamburg.
We are going to talk to a superstar in the marketing field, John Schoolcraft of Oatly. And as Oatly always says, we play by our own rules, and their marketing department is called the Department of Mind Control. We're super curious to hear what their view is on marketing and the world that we live in now. John, welcome so much.
Thank you very much. Just one correction there. We don't even have a marketing department. That's the golden rule. We have a creative department.
That's it.
We're makers, we're not approvers.
Yeah, that's actually core thing that Oatly does differently from everybody else, right?
Exactly.
Nevertheless, the Department of Mind Control. Okay, well, we'll come back to that. John, first of all, welcome. As said, there are so many case studies now about the Oatly approach and how Oatly has done things differently. Now, first of all, I mean, I remember the city of Amsterdam completely covered, everything outside was covered in Oatly. First of all, maybe very quickly, Oatly was a brand that existed for a long, long time. And then at some point, you and the CEO managed to do a completely new approach and to position it differently. It's a plant-based drink that is now immensely popular all over the world. Where did you start? I mean, you didn't start as the marketeer you are. Oh, sorry, I'll start. I'm going to take...
No. I know what you mean. You're asking me, like, how did I ever get started in this business to end up at Oatly, which is what we're going to get to maybe at the end of the interview?
Scandinavian news to Oatly, right?
So I don't know. I was born in Boise, Idaho, the middle of like cowboy country. I left there, of course, when I was 3, not on my own will, but because my family decided to move, and we moved to Seattle. And I grew up in Seattle at a time long before grunge, when it was just like lumberjackers and a fishing port. It sounds really cool now, but it is always and will be still my city. And I ended up in well, I should probably say that I started working maybe when I was 15. I did all kinds of weird jobs, like working in a department store, and there you could be like cleaning the floors or selling fine menswear or working in the kitchen. I did everything. And ended up with all kinds of weird jobs, wash dishes, security guard for Alice Cooper, all kinds of things. But and I think that's probably, looking back, when you're doing it, sweeping a parking lot with a broom, you're like, this really sucks. But I think having done that, it gives you perspective, later on everything you're doing. So eventually, yeah, you're right. I came to study in Sweden. I met my wife, who was my girlfriend at that time, and it was a weird time. Sweden in like the 80s, you had to speak Swedish, or it was like, now it's like you don't have to speak Swedish at all. But there were like few, I had this like university degree and thought I was all hot and everything's cool and rock on over to Sweden. And they told me I could work in a factory on the night shift. So I started teaching businessmen, one-on-one English, and I started writing articles for like an industrial business newspaper about Swedish companies, which was great because I was doing interviews with the CEOs and got to learn everything. But eventually I figured that there's something called copywriting, and you can write actually less and write what you want, and probably make more money at it. So I started doing that instead.
Well, you became a very successful copywriter, but then you went through a whole string of agencies working for clients. And if I understand correctly, you did feel that the way the industry is set up with the clients and the agencies and all the discussions between them, that this ruined some perfectly creative, interesting ideas, right? I mean, through that whole, those many years of working for those agencies, what did you take with you?
I think that I'm just naturally rebelling against everything. I mean, just my whole childhood in school was, it was just kind of this rebellion against everything. And so I end up in an industry that's kind of a rebel itself, but still just felt it like, I loved the advertising business and hated it at the same time. I hated the clients. Insecurity. They were like insecure. They were afraid of their boss man, or, whatever it was, afraid to do something that stuck out. Like, why are you coming to me for an advertising problem? So, I took a lot of chances. I started my own agency in Spain without any clients, at that time I thought the problem was account managers. So we didn't have any account managers. We took them all away. And then you realize, like, oh, wow, as a creative, now you've got to be the account manager because someone has to talk to the client. So I, kind of learned as I went.
So why did you hate the clients? I mean, did you hate...
No, I didn't hate the clients. I liked the clients, but I hated the clients' insecurity. You know what I mean? It was like, you need to have a good client, and to have a good client, you have to create, trust and security for them. And a lot of times there are good clients. It's just like you end up with I don't know, you're working in a marketing department, you're looking at numbers, you're trying to play it safe, you're making your boss happy first, you're making maybe the CEO happy second, and then you're worrying about what actually consumers think. And so I think that's the equation for me that doesn't necessarily work. And you need someone really bold to take chances that say, no, look, let's make things for people who are actually going to buy our products. I'm generalizing a bit, of course, but it was just like my experience. And what I was saying about Martin and Lars is they luckily ended up in a slightly different environment, which allowed them to do, brilliant work. But that was just my thing, and I was like a total rebel against that system, finding it broken. So, when Tony, my friend, became CEO of Oatly, I was like, wow, this is magic. Called me and he said, can we do something? Maybe we want to get into that later, but it was just like, he called me and said, we want to do something. I said, oat milk, that sounds too weird. No, thank you. I'm not interested. Oat milk, goat milk. I mean, we're never going to get people to try this. And then I figured, well, if we take rid of the marketing department, then I have no one to blame but myself. And I'm working directly with the CEO, and we're only making things for people, not making things for our own approval. And that, was a little trigger and an ability to say, okay, well, if you fail now, you don't have a client to blame, you only have yourself, which is the best situation I think you can be in.
All right, so Oatly already existed. You arrived there suddenly as the friend of the CEO. Everybody will listen to you. What was the first thing you did? What changes did you make? You didn't even love the product, apparently, right? It's not like you thought...
No, I didn't understand the product at first. I thought, oat milk, wow, what's that? And you try it, and it's like, that's different. And so Tony became CEO, and the plan was, okay, the board of directors at the time that hired Tony, that was the most risky, crazy, bold move maybe in Swedish business history. Here's a guy with like no background in the food industry, no background in running any kind of a larger company, had been incredibly successful running, nightclubs and restaurants and with lifestyle products. And they hire him to, change, make this, an interesting product for not just, vegans and vegetarians, but a much larger audience. So Tony calls me and says, can we do something? And when we start working, the whole thing was, okay, so we need to change everything. And you don't tell all the employees and the board, we're going to change everything from the beginning. What we didn't change was that entrepreneurial spirit that had been in the company for 30 years. I mean, there were like 30 or 40 incredible, wonderful, dedicated engineers in a small factory in the middle of the Swedish countryside. And so we just kind of found our way back to the roots, brought back that entrepreneurial spirit into the company that was originally and had always been there. And then just, we put together what we call the change book. It was just a, blueprint, a strategy. It was actually a physical book with a wood cover. And that was done the first 30 days that Tony was CEO. It just like plopped down on the board and every employee's desk or wherever they were. And it was like, so here's the path forward. And you can imagine the board was like, wow, this is amazing. A lot of the employees are like, what is this? Why?
What was the book? I mean, what direction was the way forward?
It was just a strategy document. It was just, this is what we need to do. And it just kind of defined the situation. It just kind of defined how we would act as a company going forward. Like no one listens to brands. And, it was just like a series of statements and guidelines that we would live by. And it was like so foreign, I think, at the time to everyone. And, by the time that Tony takes over and we do the first redesign of the packaging, it's a year and a half. It takes time. Yeah. And it's like a year and a half where everyone just has to believe in something they have no idea what they're believing about. And so Tony was fantastic as a CEO at that time, very engaged in everyone, very interactive. We were 40 people. If you think back on it, it was like a wonderful time. But again, when the packaging finally came out and didn't look anything like packaging, we called the whole company to the meeting room. And Tony says, this is our new packaging. And one of the people said, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. You're going to ruin the company forever. It's so childish. I can't believe you're doing it. And he saw some sort of pornographic illustration. He's like, and it's pornographic. It's like, pornographic? That's the last thing it is. I don't know how your mind's working here. But Tony said, like, thank you for your, thanks for your input, but this is what we're going to do. And the funny thing is that, 6 months later or whatever, when the packages are rolling out of the factory, that same person came up to me and said, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I'm so proud to work at this company. These packages are incredible. And it's just like, not everyone can see what you're doing. Not everyone understands. That's the whole thing, is if you try to please people all along the way, you're just going to fail, because people like what they've seen before until they've seen something new, and then they say, wow, that's really great. So
I understand the vision you both had for the brand in the communication with the outside world. Is it something irreverent, something personal, something different from what other people were doing? What was the big difference? Because if you look at it now, and of course it's many years later, you think like, okay, it's packaging, it's a new package, but there was something else going on as well, right? It's in the approach that you took that defined Oatly immediately as something else.
Yeah, so there's a lot of personality of, I would say, originally maybe myself and Tony in the brand. I would say, what do we do different? If you go back 10 years, it's voice. It's a way of talking. We decided we were not a company with a logo. We're a group of humans here to help other humans make a few choices in their lives that are good for their body and the planet. And so that's the way we spoke, and that's the way we acted. And if you called us or wrote to us at that time on Facebook, or you called us up, you weren't going to get a machine or an answer. You were going to get someone who was like really cared. Everyone at the company really cared. And so I think that's the first thing that was very different, is that we created this voice that was unique and was human and spoke to people. And, we were also consistently inconsistent. We made things for ourselves. There were no marketing rules we played by. We didn't have anything in the beginning besides the pack. We had no budget. We had the sides to our packaging. So we said, why don't we just use the sides and make people, first of all, the packaging design is just like OAT-LY exclamation point. Why would you divide your name? Why is there an exclamation point? It's just like, these are wrong. But I remember when we showed it to Tony the first time, he came in and said, Lee, why? And it's like, exactly. And people should just, don't give them answers, give them questions. And so the packaging was made so that you would walk in, pick it up. What is this? Turn it around on the side and maybe read something you never expected a company to ever put on their packaging, and then say, I got to try it.
Yeah.
And so we knew that if people tried it, they just might like it.
And I think you also,
we had
put everything in English right away, right? So it would be,
and
everybody could read it.
And in Sweden, where we were biggest at the time, that was like a huge problem. I mean, I put my telephone number actually on the packaging because it was quite
Your own
stupid thing to do. Yeah. Well, I had a little side, like a little burner phone or something like that. But I put it on there, and I would get people calling me up, and they would be like saying to me, "Why are you writing in English? Are you trying to ruin the Swedish language?" And I would say, well, if I was going to ruin the Swedish language, I probably wouldn't choose the side of an oat milk package to do so. I would find a much bigger format. But I mean, the whole thing is that, we were in, an international company, a global company. We wanted that perception. We also knew that writing in English gives a lot of, it's like people tend to, when they read in English, become someone slightly different. Maybe less judgmental. Maybe they're a little bit on holiday.
A little bit more aspirational as well.
Yeah, there's a whole different feel to that, So, and basically, I couldn't write in Swedish. It's like I can speak
getting back
Swedish,
to the heart
but
of
I can't.
The heart of the matter.
Yeah, I can't write. That's basically it. I can't write in Swedish. I was writing the packs.
You have the package. You have your own telephone number on it. You write it in your own language. What are because there are a few campaigns you did afterwards that people considered at the time quite outrageous. I mean, there's been a lot of copycatting later on, but at the time, what were the most outrageous or the most the most surprising things you've done?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many things. That's the whole thing. There was never an equation to make marketing. We were a small brand, and so you had to stick out. The first thing we did is we just did the packaging, and it was like, it's like milk but made for humans. And the evil Swedish dairy lobby sued us for that. And it was like, thank you very much. It's like, wow, really, a lawsuit for what? And they sued us because they thought that line made milk sound old-fashioned and out of date.
Yeah.
Grammatically, it's only talking about us. It's just saying it's like milk, but it's designed for human consumption. And if you think about it, like cow's milk is designed for what? Baby cows. It's like 99.9% of the biologists in the world will tell you that. One you can probably buy off.
Did they win? Did they win that court case? Because
no, we lost the court case.
Yeah, because just last 2 weeks ago, there was a campaign in the Netherlands saying dairy is harmful for animals, and the Dairy Association fought it, and they won. They were not allowed to say this in public that producing dairy is actually harmful for calves and animals. I mean,
that's a strange thing because. We lost it's like milk but made for humans line in Swedish court. It's not so strange that we lost that because, the milk industry is very powerful in Sweden. And we were questioning something that is like incredibly emotional. It's at the center of, number one commodity product in the supermarket. And we're like saying it's what? Not for humans? Which we weren't. We were just saying. The funny thing is that there's been, EU rulings on that line later, and one of the EU rulings said, we should be allowed to use it because everyone knows that milk is not necessarily good for humans. I could say that for you. It was really funny. It was really funny that we've gone that far, but it's, it was, no, but listen, the thing is like, we realize in our whole history that if you're trying to, contribute to society, to find new ways going forward, to help people make better choices when it comes to their food, and to also be thinking about having a planet that we can live on in the future, future generations, we're not going to, make friends with everyone. We're not looking to make enemies. We're just looking to, create some societal change that can be positive. And so that can be bumpy. It's bumpier and bumpier for us as we go. The bigger we get, we become more of a target because we stand for certain things. And that's okay. We've never said like we intend to make everyone happy with every ad we make or every campaign we make. That's never been the intention, but we can make some people really love us and really believe in what we're trying to do. And we try to work a lot through proving things and not just saying things, like doing things for real. So if you look at our campaign, we had a campaign last year to stop Amendment 171, which was a European amendment that was designed to basically stop the way that we couldn't package oat milk in the same cartons that dairy. It was like very strange legislation. And that campaign, also a fantastic campaign. I don't know, it's like everything that you look at historically, we're always saying, like, when we come up with something new, like, this is the best thing we've ever done.
Yeah, okay, but
it's like that's the drive forward for us is like no one's looking back, everyone's just looking forward. It's just like, and I think if you're working in the creative services, if you're working at an agency, that's what drives people to make the best work of your life or the best idea that anyone's ever seen. And we've created like a creative department where that's basically on the table every single day. No one's stopping us.
Let's discuss how you organize this, because you said there's no CMO, we're all creative people here, so you're the creative officer. How do you do everything within the company, or do you work with a number of different creative agencies and then bring them in? What is, because you had this client experience with the onshore clients and everything, so you have the chance to completely organize things differently, right? So how did you organize this?
So we have tons of rules, but we break them. I would say the first thing is that both Martin Ringqvist and Lars Elfman were at Forsman and Bodenfors. So we started out with, it was just basically me. I was the creative department. Tony came to me one day and says, John, you probably think you can do everything by yourself, but you can't. Very happy for his wisdom, being the CEO. And so we started working with a very small team of Forsman and Bodenfors from the beginning. And it wasn't like, full team. It was basically Lars and Martin and myself, account manager to keep us on track, but it was us. And I was writing the copy. Martin at the agency was approving it. It was like a very collaborative. We were just working together.
It's interesting. It's interesting turnaround. You write a copy, the agency approves it. Usually, it's
we're
the other
always
way around.
laughing. Like, Martin, you want to be the client. Now you get a chance to be the client. And so, but it was very collaborative. And when we thought it was good enough, we said it's ready to go. There's nobody. So here's the way it works. We're sitting in the middle of an oat milk company. So there are no briefs. Like, we just walk around and have meetings. We discuss things, philosophical discussions, business discussions, whatever it may be. And when we find something that we find interesting, we just extract it and start making something out of it. And so, and we change our mind whenever we come up with a better idea. We can change it whenever we want. So we kind of brief ourselves, do the work, and then approve it. When we think it's ready, it can be approved. The only person in the company that can technically stop anything is Tony. He's the CEO. But here's the unique thing.
And he's your friend, so he will not say no.
He's my friend. That doesn't mean if he hates something, he wouldn't try to stop it. But Tony is very, very good at what we do. And usually he has a little different angle to it. So I would say most of the time Tony will make things better. He'll find something else in it that will make better. However, it sounds like we're just walking around like these prima donnas that do whatever we want. The thing is that we work so tightly with innovation, with the commercial team. It's like, it's a collaboration. As long as they can tell us what their problems are, we can give them what they need. The thing is that someone working in the commercial department is probably not very good at making an ad or writing copy. If they were, they would be working in the creative department. So let us make the decisions on what we do there. You just tell us the problem. So it's very, very collaborative. We've torn down the walls of how things are done. And you can have people in the sustainability department coming up with ideas for a campaign or innovation or finance. It doesn't matter. Everyone's, collaboratively working together. And I think that if there's any, Oatly secret, that's it. It's entirely different from how other companies work.
So you have this internal cooperation and a very open atmosphere and a very creative spirit. Maybe you could tell me the story about, because Oatly, going from a Swedish company to this global company that it is now, it entered the American market, and how do you do that? Of course, you need a Super Bowl ad, right? Maybe you could tell that story. What happened there?
Yeah, well, our American history is probably like 3 years or 4 years long. So it actually started before, when we came into the U.S. We didn't have Super Bowl money at all. There was like absolutely no money, and it was like everyone's like going to the supermarkets, going to retail, and it's like, really? Do you know how many products there are in the retail shelves? Like, okay, we got good packaging, but maybe we're going to get 1 slot or 2 slots. People aren't going to find it. So instead, we had just developed this Barista Edition product. It was technically by far the best plant milk for coffee. So we didn't go to retail. We started working with the top end coffee roasters and coffee shops in the country, and we had this product that was great. And so we just had built a team of people from the coffee industry that went around to the coffee industry and talked to them. And the first thing was like, get the fuck out of here. Another plant-based milk. We don't want that. No, thank you. We've had enough. Well, almond and soy are not very good in coffee, and almond and soy don't really have any technical characteristics that let them foam, microfoam, and stuff like that. So we would just leave the product there and come back a week later, and when we came back, they were like, what is this? This is amazing. It's so perfect with coffee. And so we went from, how are we going to break into the U.S. market to having supply problems. There was the first great oat milk shortage 6 months after we launched in the U.S., and all of Brooklyn had signs on every cafe, no, we don't have oat milk. So it just it exploded. Yeah. And yeah, it's great. Supply outstrips demand. It's great if you're working with me, like, oh wow, our demand, so great demand. But it's also a problem because you're turning down people's business. You've got a little coffee shop, and people want to come, and you can't supply them. So again, small company working around the clock, hand delivering stuff, getting everything out, and eventually we grow. And they're I don't know. The Super Bowl is such a weird thing. It's like the showcase of everything. I grew up, watching Super Bowl ads, but I never understood how big it is until you actually have an ad in the Super Bowl. Yeah. And our ad was like such an anti-ad. It was. I remember. So here's the thing: is when we first started out, 2014, we made 30 commercials with Tony as the CEO, and because we thought everyone's going to love Tony if they can meet him, but Tony didn't want to be famous, and he didn't want to be the face of the company, and he really hated it, but he trusted us. And so we said, Tony, we're going to put you in all these 30 commercials, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And of course he did it. So we wrote him these fake scripts. They were just fake. So he would start focusing on that and learn everything about it. And so the night before we're doing the first shoot day, he calls me up and says, John, these scripts are terrible. This isn't going to work. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, Tony, but let's try tomorrow. And if it doesn't work, we'll just cancel the shoot and do something else. But the whole thing was just so he would be focused. And then we just filmed him while we talked to him.
So this was basically a big practical joke you put on your friend,
yes,
right?
Yes. He would be standing, there's one, he's standing in front of a flight post, like, when are we going to start? It's like, but Tony, just talk. People want to see the real CEO. They don't want an ad. And he's just like, this is terrible. I don't believe in it. And that's what we ran. And one of them was, we said to him, because, we're friends, so I know Tony's like a musician. And at one time in his life, he was like a pop star in Japan. He's half Japanese anyway, so it's like, and so we thought, like, Tony, why don't you sing a song in the middle of an oat field? And he's like, I'm not doing that. And so I don't have time. I'm the CEO of this oat milk company. I don't have time to write a song. So we wrote him one. And then he thought it was like impinging on his creative freedom or something like that. So he wrote his own, and he showed up on set. and we had an 80s synthesizer with an extension cord, and we stuck him in the middle of an oat field, and he sang this song that he had written himself. And we were like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing we've ever seen. So that was 2014. As we started to grow, I always said to him, like,
because
Tony,
in the end that ran, right? That ran as a...
Yeah, because I said to him, like...
During the Super Bowl, so everybody in the US...
2017, if we ever become successful in the US, I want to put you singing on the Super Bowl just because I would find it hilarious that 200 million people would get to see you, watch you sing. And he's like, oh, no, that's not going to happen. And so that year we decided, no, we're going to do a Super Bowl ad. And I never told him what we were going to put on the Super Bowl until, like, I don't know, it was like January. He's like, John, I have to see what we're going to put on the Super Bowl. I'm the CEO of the company. I got to approve it. And I said, you know what we're going to put on the Super Bowl? It's already sent in. It's you singing your song. And he literally just started laughing. The problem is that it's kind of a troll to the whole advertising industry. Like, there is an equation of how you make a Super Bowl ad. You spend a fortune on production.
Yeah.
You put a celebrity in there, and you tell a funny joke. And we did none of that. We had Tony the production cost for that film was less than the catering budget on probably every single other film. So we just ran it and thought, this is hilarious. This is who we are. And it's like the minute it ran, the internet just exploded. Like, half the people thought it was the best ever, half the people thought it was the worst ever. And that's the
exactly what you
situation
wanted,
to be
of
in.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that because we understand internet culture, we thought people are going to hate this. I mean, here was the goal: to make the worst Super Bowl ad in history, one. Two, to make the best Super Bowl ad in history. Or three, to make the weirdest Super Bowl in history. And we had all those headlines the next day. And what we did is that we made these T-shirts because we figured people are going to just start hating on this. So we made these T-shirts that said, I hated Oatly Super Bowl ad. And as soon as it ran, people could, like, if you were in Tampa or New York or LA, we had like bike messengers delivering these before the fourth quarter. So just like, I hated it, you signed up. Those sold out in, like, I don't know, like not 12 seconds, but like 5 minutes or something like that. And they were gone. And it was just like, oh, fuck, Oatly gets it. Like, yeah. They're trolling everyone on this.
We just mentioned that we understand internet culture, and you describe packaging, you describe Super Bowl. I mean, over the last 10 years that you were at Oatly, internet culture has been social media culture and lots of other things. How have you made use of that culture? How have you worked with that culture?
Wow, internet culture, it's changing so fast all the time. So I wouldn't say that Oatly's been like someone who's like tapped into all the trends and tries to utilize all the trends. We're not really looking at that. But I think what I would extract from that is just the difference, the exchange of information, the availability of everything becomes so fast that it kind of changes the way that I would say it's like a very offline approach to the online world, is that we look at, like, what do people demand of brands? Everything's there. You can see their whole history, all these things. It's changed so much in the last 10 years. Like, again, this is not necessarily going to answer your question about the internet itself, but if you look 10 years ago, we were like, trying to be very transparent, try to be very open, had an opinion. If you look at the packaging sides, it said we're trying to be a good company, and it said, it was like very, like, here's what we believe, and there were thoughts about, I don't know. We've been very vocal about, the capitalistic system we live in, people's rights, all these type of things. And it was like, now everyone's, because of the internet and how fast things spread and how available, how things can blow up so quickly. I mean, every company's trying to be woke, but they're trying to be, we need to have a purpose because it's demanded of us by customers. And it's like, I don't know. We were probably 10 years ahead of that, but we were doing it not to try to, sell a product, to have purpose to sell a product. We just thought there should be like a meaningful reason for going to work. And if you were going to have a business, there should be a meaningful reason behind it, both for consumers who are buying your products and for people who are working at the company. So I know that's not a technical digital internet question, but I would think that is the thing that's been so profound about the internet, is it's kind of like changed the expectations people have on brands and on people and on because everything's so accessible.
Okay, and do you think, as I said, this is a show that very often talks about the new thing and the digital developments and so forth. And at the moment there's this, it's almost like, many years ago, sort of an excitement, Web 3.0, and there's other things we can do with the internet, and there's the metaverse, and there's NFTs, and there's DAOs and so forth. Do you have a feeling as well that we have come to a new phase of the internet, or do you have the feeling like, oh no, people are what they are, when the internet is just our interface with them?
I don't know, it's like my personal, there's no, like, the company's not sitting there going NFT crazy. And it's like our focus has always been on like finding solutions to make, in the next 10 years, we're facing a climate crisis that it will change from year to year. And so I think our focus has been more on that, on the things that we can do to stop that. I can tell you probably the metaverse is not, there may be a solution in the metaverse, but what is the carbon impact of the metaverse? No one's like even thinking about what that's going to, how are NFTs going to, and I know there's someone out there who's probably watching this like, he doesn't get it, the metaverse can solve it all, through NFTs we can build, great, cool, excellent. It's like, if there's a solution in that, it's fantastic. It's just like, I'm not like spending certain things on like, oh wow, that's the new thing, so let's do that. Like, no. we're not. A lot of people spend their whole time looking for trends in marketing or something like that, and it's just like, why would you go where everyone else is going? Because then you're just like everyone else. So I again, this is a strange answer and maybe not as clear as you would want it to be, but I would think like the metaverse can be good, and NFTs can be good. But right now we don't have our focus, all our energy on creating a metaverse solution. And I just,
where does all your focus go? What is the thing you focus on?
Just on finding ways to interact with people to help them understand. There, a lot of people know us and love us. A lot of people have no idea what oat milk is. Yeah. And so if we're ever to make an impact, a wide impact, it's not just necessarily the coolest, hippest coffee shops in Amsterdam. That's our heritage. That's where we've been the whole time. That's where we continue to service and focus and develop new things and find ways for, help them become more sustainable. But we also need to like have a wider audience. Like, what about the family in Texas or Oklahoma or Wisconsin or wherever it may be, who you would think like, they're never going to like oat milk. Why not?
Yeah. That's actually what I wanted to ask. You started out with this very rebellious brand fighting the others, the dairy industry, but now you are a huge company with a 10 billion market cap and investors for more. Your criticism of capitalism is valid, and at the same time you are riding this huge wave of what's possible, right?
Absolutely.
How do these two things combine? Can you, because it's not just that the rebellious nature is fun and how can you keep it? It's also about, we were rebellious when we were the underdog, but now we actually need to convince, as you say, the whole wild world. It's no longer about fighting a few giants, it's like convincing everybody, right?
But we can still have this totally rebellious, it's like, it's the same people behind the company making things. The only thing that we've done differently is we've become successful and we've grown. And so it's like, so are we going to change? Why? It's like, I just think like, it's like we have a different platform. We have a wider audience. but we still know that dairy is 90% of all the milk consumed. Wow, that's a huge runway. Should it be like that? Can the planet withstand that? Is it good for humans? Those questions, are things that we're working with all the time. So it's like, I don't see us being less rebellious whatsoever. You get listed on the stock exchange, and there's a set of rules that are potentially new because you're a public company, and those are things that you need to follow by. But those in themselves are in place for a reason. Because people can invest in you, so that's cool. That doesn't mean that we can't be just as rebellious and just as active and looking for new ways. We're always looking for new ways to trigger, people to maybe think, "What's this oat milk?" And we know that, like, you run ads in a magazine and you get hundreds of complaints because people hate your ads, and it's like, we run ads in like the Atlantic magazine, a very intellectual magazine, and people will just like, I love the negative feedback because, wait, you took time to write to us? You actually read a magazine ad?
Looked up the email address?
And then you sat down and wrote an email and considered this? Wow, they're going to try it. And if they try the product, that's all we can ask. Then the product has to do itself. We make an amazing product. And so it's like handoff, go product.
Yeah, how does this work? Because, and we almost have to wrap up, but how does it work? So you're now not only a successful company in that you sell a lot of oatmeal, but you're also a big company, right? There's lots of people working there. So there might be at the top a very small community, but can the people in the company still feel part of that creative spirit and contact? And is there, because that must get hard now. I mean, if it's a really big company, it's hard.
Yeah. And I think if you come, that you will find all kinds of answers if you were to ask that question. Some people immediately find it, and that spirit is like everywhere. But we're living in our computers now. Not everyone's in the office. We've grown. As you grow, you recruit new people. They come in from different company cultures where you do things maybe ordinary. So I mean, those are things that we're dealing with all the time. How do we get people quickly into the Oatly company culture to realize it's okay to make mistakes, that we need to fail in order to succeed? It's like there's all those things that sometimes can take a little bit of time. Absolutely. Those are organizational things, but staying true, being focused, continually having a voice that's not wavering, that's not scared, that's fearless, that's fighting for the right things. That's providing a meaning for people who are working there and consumers too. I mean, that's not going away.
That reader of the Atlantic who pages through the magazine or reads it online and then looks you up and then sends. Do you read all those mails? Are you still sort of?
I don't, but I always ask the community team to actually don't send me the positive stuff, because it's just, I don't need like a pat on the back. Send me that stuff where people are angry, because a lot of times I would write back to them. I would write an email back to them. Thank you very much, for actually taking, 20 minutes to sit down and write. It's okay. You can, dislike our ad, it's fine. But maybe someday you can, feel like maybe you would like to try that. It's just like that whole human thing of actually taking the time and interacting on a human scale and not just letting, the automation of computers do everything. That's where I think it's like so key.
Yeah. So going from that, phone number on the packaging to, responding to the worst emails of the...
Yeah, the whole thing is like a series of very stupid decisions that are very naive but optimistic at the same time, and they continue to make stupid, naive, optimistic decisions even when you're bigger. And the market's watching everything you do.
Okay, I definitely hope you can keep that spirit going in Oatly. And I actually hope a lot more companies could do this. I mean, doesn't have to be only you. I mean, I like that. I mean, really, really hope more companies can feel that.
You need a CEO who understands.
Yeah.
If there's one thing, it's like, because the CEO is the leader of the company, and as long as the CEO understands the magic of that, it's possible. If they want a, organizational chart, Excel, test result, measuring system, it's hard to create that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for those insights. Very much enjoyed that conversation. We do have one last thing. Those are the 5 questions. There's 1,000 people going to a new planet. You're one of the 1,000 people that can go. But we have 5 questions for you. So there's a new planet, it's bare, there's nothing there yet. A whole new society needs to be built up. It's completely new. So we take some things from Earth. And you get these 5 questions. So let's try and see what your answers are. So you're one of those 1,000 people. Name one luxury object that you would want to take with you on that trip.
So I'm guessing this new planet has an atmosphere, and it has water, and it's kind of like our planet.
You don't have to bring that. It's livable. Yes.
Okay, it's livable. So here's the deal. 1,000 people on a planet. I'm going to bring a 9.6 Gato Heroi smooth operator surfboard. There's going to be no one else out surfing. I'm going to have the waves to myself. I'll have a wonderful life. The 999 other people can focus on building the society. I've been so busy here in this life that I'm going to have fun there. So that's my answer.
I have some idea of what will happen after Oatly now. Okay. I'm
going to Planet Next.
Exactly. Okay. If you take 1,000 people on this trip, what is the one book you would recommend each one of them reads? What's the one book you feel people should read before they start a new society?
Before they start, So I would think like something like Jack Kerouac's Dharma Bums, because there's like this wonderful vision of spending an entire summer in the North Cascades Mountains, which are just outside Seattle, as a fire lookout. And I often think about the visuals that I got as I was reading that, and I would think like the new planet may be slightly different. So if everyone goes to the new planet with that in mind, what it was like before there were fires every single summer, it might help people, respect a little bit this new planet. It's a cool planet, right? I mean, it's a good planet, the new one.
It's interesting. We've done this round, I think now 30 times, and you're the first one asking about the details of the planet.
Well, I'm just thinking haven't you ever spent time thinking about, if you could create a country or you could create a planet, or if that was even possible, what you could do? I think it's like, I have. That's why it's really weird for me that these Bitcoin millionaires are buying islands, because it's always like, I've always played with the thought of, if you could create, the perfect, anyway. Buy an island.
Let's do it here.
And
we have the book, we have the surfboard. Okay.
Yes.
There's one exceptional person you can take along. Who would you bring?
So I am living with my wife and my family all the time. It's been lockdown. It's been amazing. It's like, but you told me like I couldn't bring them.
They're already coming. They're not your exceptional
they're already
person.
coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say that Tony's no longer my friend. And then I would bring him.
Very good.
Just because it's fun to put him in situations that he hates to be in. And so maybe he wouldn't want to come along, but
all right. And you never know, we might need some popular music on that island as well, and he can do the singing.
Exactly.
All right, I've got one for you. Name one law that forbids something in this new world. There's something that exists here on Earth that will not exist there. What would it be?
I get to make a law?
Yes.
Okay, here's my law. No one is allowed to wear a New York Yankees baseball cap. I hate the Yankees. And if I could buy every hat and I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't want to buy it and destroy it.
It's very
that would
specific.
Be bad for the planet.
I think
That's my law. No Yankees logos anywhere.
We'll get it passed. It's no problem at all. And then the last one. Name one tradition from planet Earth that you would want to bring along to this new planet.
Making pizzas in wood-fired ovens. Is that a tradition?
I think that's a tradition. It's remarkable. Most people actually take shared food as a tradition to bring along. So it's either the Christmas lunch, or it's the dinner time together, or it's the communal meals. So I think pizzas, they would
I'm
go
like
a long
the
way.
least traditional, like all the traditional things. It's just like Sweden's the traditional country, and I'm just like not that traditional. So I would just think like it's kind of a tradition to make pizza. So I wouldn't want to like go there and it was like no pizza. Imagine if you went to this planet and it's like no pizza.
Okay, we have pizza, we have a surfboard, you have your best friend with you. I think you're going to have a good time.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
John, thank you so much for this
Excellent.
conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this fascinating conversation today, and also thank you for watching this episode. If you don't want to miss any of our future seasons, please simply subscribe to our newsletter on nextconf.eu. Finally, I'd like to thank our partners Accenture, Factor 3 and T3N for their support. Bye bye.